poetry from Warren Wilson College. Their work has been published in many literary reviews and anthologies. They are the recipient of the Ruth Lilly Fellowship awarded by Poetry and the Modern Language Association. Raised in South Georgia, Driskell lived most of their adult life in Atlanta. They now live in Bethlehem, New Hampshire, where they are the executive director of the Frost Place, an arts organization headquartered in Robert Frost's historic home. Driskell is constantly inspired by the legacy of Robert Frost and the beauty of the landscape. They are the author of Talismans, released in 2014 by Hobblebush Books. I have known many poets in my life. One of the great gifts of having the life that I have is having been someone who didn't have a friend in the world for much of my life, and then through poetry, got to meet a whole world of poets. There are a handful of poets that I have met in my time who I thought to myself the minute I met them, I wish I had known them when I was little. I wish I had known that they were going to be out there in the future ahead for me to meet and for me to know. Maudelle Driskell is one of those people and one of those poets. I first met Maudelle at Warren Wilson, where I was teaching. Maudelle was there as a student, but immediately as my teacher, very early on in my time there. And Warren Wilson is a space that I love. It was a space when I first got there, though, that I didn't necessarily feel immediately at home because I didn't see a lot of people who were like me in terms of my gender identity, in terms of my queerness, my lesbian identity. Then all of a sudden, there was this staggeringly talented poet who was also an extraordinary person named Maudelle Driskell. Maudelle, from the moment I met them, was someone whose poetry, with its incredible formal rigor, its deep attention to detail, and its kind of locality of language, and also the locality of the heart of those poems, poems that were from a place and that spoke about self in such an empowered and also vulnerable way. All of a sudden, there was this person who I felt at home with, who I admired, who I wanted to know, and who maybe at that point I also recognizes that I wanted to be like. I wanted to be strong in the way Maudelle was strong. I wasn't quite strong that way yet in terms of my presentation of myself and the way I was in the world. One of the things that happens when you're as good at as many things as Maudelle is good at, Maudelle is unbelievable as the leader of the Frost Place. Maudelle keeps this whole joint going. Maudelle runs the administrative part of this world. Maudelle also chases bears off. I've watched them do it. Maudelle keeps us all fed in a million different ways. And Maudelle will make you a knife by hand, as we saw, if you need it. When I told her that there were loose dogs in my neighborhood, Maudelle said, I'm going to make you something for that. Sometimes when someone is that good at so many things, it's easy for us to not recognize or to somehow forget or overlook when they also happen to be an extraordinary poet. One of the great gifts of my life has been being, for the last 2 years, the director of this conference, which is something Maudelle asked me to do. But one of the great pleasures of a much longer portion of my life has been reading the poems by Maudelle Driskell that bring me home to myself, that help me understand how to speak to my own gender identity, my own relationship to desire and to power. Maudelle is both a mirror for me, and she is a pathway to the person, the poet, and the citizen I hope to be. And I could not be more excited to welcome her tonight to her own stage, as, yes, our director, but as one of the great poets writing today. Maudelle.
Gabby, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it and how moved I am by your introduction. I feel much the same way about you. And I do have an extra thing to thank you for. It's one of my hidden fears that I've only told at this point to Abby Bresler, I think. One of my hidden fears is the fear of belching uncontrollably during a reading. So
let tonight be the night.
No, I don't think so, because your introduction moved me so much that my throat has closed up a little bit, and I feel safe from the belches.
Well, good. If you could belch and we'd love it.
Well, thank you. You may want the belching relief later. We'll see. I'm so glad to be here with all of you, to get to read your work and share with poets that I admire so much, and poets whose work I am so excited to see and to hear read. Thank you for making me a part of your community, for allowing me to share my work with you tonight. This is the first time I've really read on Zoom too, so that's something new. The past couple of years have been really difficult for me. One of the things that's happened is my mother, after an illness of 3 years, died. My poetic father, who also is my father-in-law, died. And these were very sudden. So these losses really changed me a lot in the way I look at things. It made me much more patient and much more considerate, I hope. If you don't mind, I'd love to read a couple of poems from Leon Stokesbury, who's my poetic father, and I guess Warren Wilson would be my poetic mother. But Leon was the person who helped train me in the canon, and I will say niceties, because it is not good to speak ill at this point. I will say niceties of metrics. And although I wasn't that happy when I was having to learn metrics and take those exams in graduate school, once I got to Warren Wilson and started writing, I realized just how important it was. One of the things that Leon taught was to write and to work within forms. Not because a received form is a great thing, but because when you give yourself those strictures and when you think about things and have a rhetorical scheme to follow, it allows another part of your imagination and your mind to go free. One of the things that I like to do to kind of warm up is write something called a double dactyl. I don't know if any of you know what those are. I think you'll be able to gather which ones they are when I read a few from Leon and one from myself. This is by Leon Stokesbury, Room with a View. Higgledy-piggledy, Emily Dickinson looked out her front window, struggling for breath. Suffering slightly from agoraphobia, think I'll just stay in and write about death. Old times there. Higgledy-piggledy, Red Robert Penn Warren moved way up north from his home in the south, looked over Yale, and with cynosurality made them all swallow him, grits in their mouth. And the last one, homework. This is one he wrote for my partner. Higgledy-piggledy, Aaron Elizabeth Stokesbury said math is too hard for me. Oh, for those summers of unalgebraical 13 plus 2 minus 12 minus 3. Everybody, can you hear me? Is this going okay? It's tough. Can't hear any seats creaking. I have no idea what's going on up there.
You're rocking it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's what I needed to hear. I'm hoping that I can convince Afa through some bribery, and actually anybody who can help me complete any kind of meditation, I would appreciate it. This is one of the poems that I wrote for the grind a while back, and I thought it might be apropos for tonight for y'all. The top 5 reasons the poet cannot complete guided meditation successfully. Number 1, it takes more than 5 minutes allocated to the meditation for the poet to decide exactly what type of bird he would like to be, or if being a bird is advantageous or in fact cliched. 2, the poet is just not that into narrative and refuses to follow the line. 3, flying is overdone. Falling, that might be workable. 4, imaginary falling creates way too much anxiety. 5, contemplating the possibility that a meditative faux narrative is actually a nod toward a temporal lyric, the poet will indulge the argument of the meditation, but may in fact decide that narrative is indeed present and will not continue. Mistakes that you might make in Spanish, but probably wouldn't in English. Order a soap sandwich with cheese. Confuse fingernails and nipples, asking the manicurist to smooth, moisturize, and paint your nipples just right pearl white to go with your scarf, of course. Reminder to leave them long enough to play the guitar at least on the right side. Then announce formally you're pregnant because of these mistakes. Request a sturdy homosexual or a duck to raise your car because your portly, bald tires encountered a sustained prick and are just hissing themselves to death. I speak Spanish poorly, but with great love. And one of the best moments of my life was realizing, and I did this when I was learning Spanish, is realizing that poetry is as powerful in any language. It's not some idiosyncratic thing that the upper crust people have to write about vases and harps. And they're upper crust and working people in every language, and it's all that wonderful. When I first read Pablo Neruda in Spanish, I thought my heart was breaking. And then I thought that perhaps I was the smartest person in the world because I recognized a pun with pubic hair in Spanish. So it was very fulfilling for me. And one of my favorite poems is Garcia Lorca. I love him so much. And one of his poems speaks to me so much that I overcame my shame and translated it, even though people like W.S. Merwin and much greater poets and translators for certain than I am had already worked it out. Song of the Barren Orange Tree. Woodcutter, cut my shadow from me. Free me from the torment of seeing myself without fruit. Why was I born among mirrors? The day walks in circles around me, and the night copies me into all its stars. I want to live without seeing myself, and I will dream that ants and thistleburs are my leaves and my birds. Woodcutter, cut my shadow from me. Free me from the torment of seeing myself without fruit. Scars. 1. Here's where I cut myself, bicep, horizon of the nipple, the skin puckers, lips perpetually waiting. The white-handled knife is long gone, but the purple ridges remain, tightened to a kiss when I fold my arms. 2. I think of it as a fossil. There it was, right there, the burp. I'm sorry. All right, 2. I think of it as a fossil from the pre-metastatic era. The ridges humping the skin on my thigh trouble your fingers like a knobby starfish or the business end of a sea cucumber. The hardness in the center is my large leg bone. This thing went deep. 3. Before I knew she was crazy, before I slept with the dogs on top of the attic door, which opened up to be safe For our first date, I took her to the quarry on my Yamaha Seika to swim and picnic. I was walking the bike down the loose rock path to the edge of the water when she took off her shirt and her shorts, and she beckoned. It was nothing really, but to me, it seemed like a promise. My first promise, and watching her, I slid down beneath the motorcycle. The muffler burned me to the meat. I couldn't cry, but I couldn't stay, and I rode all the way back to Athens with the wind worrying that wound. To go forth as a luminous being. I know that everyone here is so erudite, except Ross, they may not know about the great Jedi. So you'll just have to, there are quotes here from the Jedi in Star Wars. So Ross, this is for you. I actually wrote this at first, thinking of Ross. To go forth as a luminous being. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. Yoda, the Empire Strikes Back. The Jedi nesting dolls are smooth and fit together perfectly. Hollows filled with hollows, rounds filled with rounds, impossibly long necks, supraorbital ridges like Anaheim chilies, flanges with all the fixings smoothed, represented two-dimensionally in shiny enamel. The eyes know what the hands do not. Round to round, head to head, tail to tail, in a concentric sequence, a gyre of gimbaled supergalactic super-philosopher pocket-sized nesting ninjas. The smallest is largest, a stretched Yoda containing Obi-Wan, Fister, and Skywalker. They all fit in my pocket, and I can look inside. Much to learn you still have, my old Padawan. This is just the beginning. I can look inside and find nothing there, simply a set of hollows filled with a diminished self, orbits of belly and back that rattle together when shaken, hungry and hollow. Within and within and within, so close, but so lonely. Lonely as the fingers of the right hand for the right elbow. Lonely as the sun for its own light. Lonely as being that thing, and longing for that same thing. To suffocate gladly in the air. One parasite that lives in birds of prey begins in fish. It makes them lighter than their brethren, more visible, and controls their brains, giving pleasure and desire to surface, to flaunt themselves, to rise to that moment of claws, of puncture and suffocation. And I believe these worms are merciful. The water's surface breaks into diamonds. The fish lifts toward the sun into a joy, wind on its scales, soaring, soaring. Everybody doing okay? Still hear me okay?
Yeah, you're amazing.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Gabby. I tend to get more quiet as I go along. The naming of the body. I was a good child. I waited, and I listened, and I learned about the nature of things. The way the mailbox turtle's plastron is cupped, the fork in the shell above its thicker tail, modification so he could fit, so he could mate without rocking away. I thought there'd be a change. At some point, I would grow, change to be a man, to take my place with a wife. When I asked my mother at 5 what my name would be, when I would be changed, she cried, and now I know I will die in this body. 2 more. Grief has its habits. They become things to be done. The things done to you. The hollow sound of the quiet house. The hollow sound of the empty house. The sounds hollow in the empty house. The empty house hollow but sound. Sounding hollow and dark, the sleek wail crashes back into the surface, shattering the remainder of the night's slicked sea. There are things to be done still. There are still things to be done still. And this is my last poem. Thank you so much, everyone. Erin's Luna Moths. She loves these fragile creatures, bruising themselves on our bay window. I leave the lamp near the window turned to entrance them and to please her, to savor the guilt of having drawn them, these mouthless ones that only live long enough after emergence to mate. They fling themselves repeatedly into the glass, and she, with her green eyes, new leaf-colored eyes, watches. We are starving, these moths and I, pummeled with want, unable to escape that promise of light. Unable to break free, we butt the glass over and over. Here is where this poem should turn toward love. And this is not about love. It's about tricks of biology, phantom hormones commanding the imaginary. Why the light? Do 2 hot filaments replace a distant moon hooded in clouds, or is this just chance? A recessive trait reappearing generations after generation to pull moths from their purpose, pull them to bang into the glass with onion skin scrapings until their wings are shredded and they vibrate in circles. When she told me she was ovulating, I drove home without thinking, to bang myself against her, obeying the raging and the clanging echoes of work that has never been done, work I can never do. But the moths, think of them. How long do they live like this, mouthless and so hungry, remembering eating, chewing, the endless green, the shivering of trees beneath them? How many chances did they get to mate? How long to starve, to drop soundless to the fertile soil? But me, everything was there to build me right. And everything was there to build me right. Everything was there. Every single thing was right there. Thank you. Thank you.